The smell hit me first. Garlic, butter, and something rich simmering in red wine sauce. Scents that used to make my mouth water now just reminded me how long it had been since I'd eaten anything besides day-old bread and whatever the kitchen staff didn't finish. I pushed through the heavy doors of Vincenzo's, my third double shift this week, and felt the familiar weight settle over my shoulders. The weight of bills I couldn't pay, of a mother who needed medications I couldn't afford, of a brother who deserved so much more than I could give him. "You're late, Maya." Antonio's voice cut through the ambient noise of the lunch rush. He stood by the hostess stand, arms crossed, his manager's pin glinting under the chandelier light. The bus was... "I don't want excuses." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've been late 3 times this month. One more and you're done. Understand?" I nodded, biting back the explanation that the buses in this part of Chicago didn't run on time, that I'd had to walk 8 blocks in the freezing November wind because I couldn't afford the cab, that I was doing my best. But Antonio didn't care about my best. Nobody did. "Section 4 today," he said, already turning away. "And Maya? Smile. You look like someone died." I tied my apron with trembling fingers and checked my reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Dark circles shadowed my eyes. My brown hair, hastily pulled into a bun, was already coming loose. At 24, I looked older, tired, defeated. "Hey," Marco, one of the line cooks, caught my attention as I passed the kitchen. "You okay?" I managed a weak smile. Always. He didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Marco was one of the few people here who treated me like a human being instead of just another disposable waitress. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The lunch rush was brutal. Vincenzo's catered to a specific clientele, the kind of people who wore suits that cost more than my yearly rent, who ordered wine I couldn't pronounce, who left tips that could either save me or break me, depending on whether I smiled enough, moved fast enough, made myself invisible enough. I was refilling water glasses at table 12 when I felt it. That shift in the atmosphere that made everyone stop and look toward the entrance. The restaurant went quiet. Not silent, but quieter. Conversations dropped to whispers. Silverware clinked more carefully against plates. I glanced up and my breath caught. 3 men stood in the entryway. 2 were clearly security, broad-shouldered, alert, eyes constantly scanning the room, but it was the man between them who commanded attention. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that might have been handsome if not for the cold intensity in his eyes. He wore a black suit tailored so perfectly it seemed, like a second skin. Everything about him screamed power, danger, control, and beside him, clutching his hand with tiny fingers, was a little boy. The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old. He had the same dark hair as the man, the same sharp features softened by youth. He wore a miniature version of his father's suit, complete with a small tie that sat slightly crooked, but it was his eyes that caught me. While everyone else in the restaurant stared at the man with fear or fascination, the boy's eyes held something different. Confusion, frustration, a desperate kind of loneliness that I recognized because I'd seen it every day for the past 3 years. Antonio appeared instantly, his earlier irritation replaced by nervous deference. "Mr. Marchetti, welcome. Your usual table is ready." Marchetti. The name sent ice through my veins. Everyone in Chicago knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Dominic Marchetti controlled half the city's interests, legitimate and otherwise. Restaurants, real estate, construction, and beneath it all, whispers of things darker, more dangerous. "My son will order first," Marchetti said, his voice deep and accented, each word precisely chosen. "He hasn't eaten in 2 days." The boy looked up at his father, his small face pinched with what I now recognized as hunger. But there was something else, something in the way he tilted his head, the way his eyes tracked his father's lips rather than meeting his gaze. My heart stopped. I knew that look. I'd lived with it for 3 years. Antonio led them to the best table in the house, near the window with a view of the Chicago skyline. I watched as Marchetti helped his son into a chair with surprising gentleness, his large hands careful on the small shoulders. "Maya." Antonio's sharp voice snapped me back to attention. "Table 4 needs their check. Move." I delivered the check, cleared table 7, took an order at table 9, but my attention kept drifting back to the window table where Dominic Marchetti sat with his son. A waiter, Thomas, who'd been here 5 years and knew how to handle the important clients, approached their table with menus. I watched as Marchetti ordered something in rapid Italian, gesturing to his son. Thomas nodded and disappeared toward the kitchen. 10 minutes later, he returned with an elaborate pasta dish. Homemade fettuccine in a cream sauce with herbs and what looked like truffles shaved on top. The kind of dish that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The boy stared at it, didn't touch his fork. Marchetti leaned forward, speaking to his son. The boy's eyes remained fixed on the plate, his small hands folded in his lap. I moved closer, pretending to check on the neighboring table, straining to hear. "Please, Luca," Marchetti said, his voice softer than I would have expected. "You need to eat something, anything." The boy Luca didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge that his father had spoken. Because I couldn't hear him. My hands shook as I set down the water pitcher I'd been holding. I'd spent 3 years learning to recognize the signs, the way Luca's eyes searched his father's face for clues, the way he startled slightly when the waiter had returned, not having heard his approach, the way he sat perfectly still, as if stillness could somehow help him understand a world he couldn't hear. Thomas returned with another dish. This time, a beautifully plated risotto with seared scallops. Luca looked at it with the same blank expression. Marchetti's jaw tightened. I saw frustration flash across his face, quickly replaced by concern. He said something else to his son, his hands moving in what I assumed were meant to be signs. But they were wrong. All wrong. His movements were stiff, unclear. He was trying to sign eat, but his hand shape was incorrect. Trying to sign please, but the motion was in the wrong location. It was like watching someone try to speak a language they'd only seen, written, never heard, never truly learned. Luca watched his father's hands with growing confusion, then looked away, his small shoulders slumping. I should have walked away, should have minded my own business. Antonio would kill me if I interfered with Mr. Marchetti's meal. I needed this job. I couldn't afford to lose this job. But the look on that little boy's face, the loneliness, the frustration, the hunger that went beyond just food was something I couldn't ignore. Before I could talk myself out of it, I found myself walking toward their table. One of the security men tensed as I approached, his hand moving subtly toward his jacket. Marchetti's dark eyes locked onto me, assessing, calculating. "Excuse me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to interrupt." "Then don't," Marchetti replied, his tone cold enough to freeze blood. I should have backed away, should have apologized and returned to my section. Instead, I looked at Luca, at this small boy who reminded me so much of my brother, and I said the words that would change everything. "Your son can't hear you." The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Marchetti's expression went from cold to dangerous in an instant. "I'm aware of my son's condition. I know. I'm sorry." I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to run. I noticed you were trying to sign to him. I thought maybe I could help." "Help?" The word dripped with contempt. "You're a waitress." "I'm a waitress who knows ASL," I said, finding a small thread of courage. "American Sign Language. My brother is deaf. I've been signing since I was 15. Marchetti stared at me for a long moment. His security detail watched me like hawks. The entire restaurant seemed to be holding its breath. Then Luca looked up at me. His dark eyes, so much like his father's but without the hardness, held a desperate kind of hope. As if he'd heard this promise before and been disappointed too many times to fully believe it, but couldn't quite stop himself from hoping anyway. "What's your name?" Marchetti asked, his voice still cold but with a hint of something else beneath it. Curiosity, maybe, or desperation. "Maya," I whispered. "Maya Santos." "Sit down, Maya Santos." It wasn't a request. I glanced around nervously, catching Antonio's eye from across the room. His face had gone pale. He made a small gesture, "What are you doing?" But I couldn't read whether it was warning or encouragement. I pulled out a chair and sat, my heart hammering against my ribs. Luca watched me with wide eyes. Up close, I could see that he was beautiful in that way children are before the world hardens them. His dark hair curled slightly at the ends. His suit was expensive but rumpled, as if he'd been wearing it for days, and his eyes held a kind of old soul sadness that no 7-year-old should possess. I took a breath and lifted my hands. "Hello," I signed, keeping my movements clear and slow. "My name is Maya. What's your name?" The change in Luca was instant and profound. His eyes widened. His mouth fell open slightly. He sat up straighter, leaning forward as if pulled by an invisible thread. His small hands lifted, hesitant at first, then more confident. "Luca," he signed back. "My name is Luca." I smiled, a real smile this time. "It's nice to meet you, Luca. Are you hungry?" He nodded enthusiastically, his hands flying now. "So hungry. But the food looks weird. I don't know what it is. Papa tries to tell me, but I can't understand his hands. He's learning, but it's slow, and his fingers are too big, and he makes the shapes wrong." The rush of signs came so fast I almost couldn't keep up. This was a child starved for conversation, for connection, for someone who could actually understand him. "What is he saying?" Marchetti demanded, his voice tight. I looked at him, seeing past the dangerous exterior to the father underneath. A father who was watching his son communicate freely for the first time in who? He knows how long, unable to understand a word of it. "He says he's very hungry," I translated. "But he doesn't recognize the food, and he's been unable to understand what you've been trying to tell him about it." Something flickered in Marchetti's eyes. Pain, maybe. Guilt. "I've been trying to learn," he said quietly. "I have a tutor, but it's been..." He trailed off. "Hard," I finished. ASL isn't just about learning signs. It's about fluency, about expression. It takes time. Time my son doesn't have. Marchetti looked at Luca, and for a moment, the dangerous crime boss disappeared entirely, leaving only a worried father. "He's been refusing food for 2 days. The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong, but he won't eat. Not at home, not at school. He just sits there." I turned back to Luca. "Why won't you eat?" I signed. His small face crumpled. "Nobody talks to me," he signed. "At home, Papa tries, but I don't understand. The housekeeper just points at things. At school, the other kids think I'm stupid because I can't hear. The teachers talk slow and loud like that will help. Nobody knows how to talk with their hands except Mrs. Chen, and she's old and boring, and she only teaches me for 1 hour a day." "I'm not old or boring," I signed with a slight smile, "and I'd very much like to talk with you. But first, you need to eat something. Can you tell me what kinds of food you like?" His eyes lit up. "Chicken fingers, and macaroni and cheese, and pizza with just cheese. No weird toppies on it." I couldn't help but laugh at weird toppies. "I think we can do better than that. Do you trust me?" He nodded immediately, completely, with the kind of trust that only children can give so freely. I turned to Marchetti. "Do you trust me?" His eyes narrowed. "I don't know you." "I know. But you brought your son here because he needs to eat, and I can help with that. Let me try." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken questions and calculations. I could almost see him weighing the risks, assessing whether I was a threat or an opportunity. Finally, he nodded once. "What do you need?" "Access to the kitchen. And 10 minutes. Marchetti pulled out his phone, sent a rapid text. Within seconds, Antonio appeared at the table, his face a mask of nervous professionalism. "Mr. Marchetti? Miss Santos needs access to the kitchen," Marchetti said. "Give her whatever she requires." Antonio's eyes widened. "Sir, I don't think..." "Now." The single word carried such weight that Antonio immediately nodded. "Of course. Right away." I stood, my legs shaky with adrenaline. Luca looked up at me with those hopeful eyes, and I signed, "I'll be right back. I'm going to make you something special." "Promise?" He signed. "Promise." The kitchen was chaos. Marco looked up in surprise as Antonio ushered me in. "What's going on?" he asked. "Mr. Marchetti's son," Antonio explained, his voice tight. "She's helping." I didn't have time to explain. I moved through the kitchen like I belonged there, scanning the ingredients, the prepared components, the tools. "I need butter, pasta, plain penne or rigatoni Parmesan cheese, a little bit of the pasta water, and do we have any chicken that's not in a sauce?" "We have some grilled chicken breast," Marco offered, already moving to help. "What are you making?" "Comfort food," I said. "Simple pasta with butter and cheese, and I need the chicken cut into strips, about this big," I demonstrated with my fingers. Marco moved with professional efficiency, and within minutes, I had everything I needed. I worked quickly, cooking the pasta until it was perfectly al dente, tossing it with real butter and freshly grated Parmesan, adding just enough pasta water to create a silky coating. The chicken strips I arranged on the side, plain and simple. But the final touch was the most important part. Using a small cookie cutter I found in the pastry section, I cut the chicken strips into star shapes. Why stars? Marco asked, watching me work. Because every kid deserves to feel special, I said. Especially the ones who feel invisible. I plated everything carefully, the buttery pasta in a small bowl, the star-shaped chicken arranged around it, a few cherry tomatoes on the side for color. Simple. Child-friendly. Nothing scary or unfamiliar. When I returned to the table, Luca's face lit up again. I set the plate in front of him and signed, I made this especially for you. The chicken is in stars because I think you're pretty special. He looked down at the plate, then up at me, then at his father. His small hands moved. Can I really eat it? It's all yours, I signed. Marchetti watched, tense, as his son picked up a fork with hands that trembled slightly. Luca speared a star-shaped piece of chicken, brought it to his mouth, and took a bite. The change was immediate. His eyes widened. He chewed, swallowed, and immediately reached for another piece. Within 5 minutes, the plate it was empty. Luca had eaten every single bite, his small face finally showing color, his shoulders no longer slumped in defeat. Marchetti's hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles went white. When he looked up at me, there was something raw in his eyes, something vulnerable that I suspected he rarely let anyone see. Thank you, he said, his voice rough. You're welcome. I started to stand. I should get back to my section. Sit. Again, not a request. Please. I sat. Luca signed something to his father, his hands moving rapidly. Marchetti's brow furrowed. He looked at me helplessly. He wants to know if you'll come home with us. I translated. He says he needs someone who can really talk to him. Tell him. Marchetti paused. Tell him I would very much like that as well. My stomach dropped. Mr. Marchetti, I can't just... What do you make here? He interrupted. Hourly wage plus tips? I don't see how that's... Humor me. Minimum wage, I admitted. $8.25 an hour. Tips vary. I'll pay you $1,000 a week, he said flatly. To tutor my son, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. You'll have fun days off. I stared at him. $1,000 a week. That was more than I made in a month here. More than enough to cover my mother's medications, my brother's therapy, our rent. I have a job, I said weakly. You had a job. Marchetti pulled out his phone again. Another rapid text. You're fired from here, effective immediately. I'll compensate the restaurant for any inconvenience. You can't just... I can. His eyes met mine, dark and intense. I can do anything I want, Maya Santos. And what I want right now is for my son to be happy. You've given him something in the last 20 minutes that no one else has been able to give him in 3 years. The ability to communicate, to be understood, to feel less alone. His voice dropped lower. Name your price. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes to make you. Say yes. I looked at Luca, who was watching our interaction with keen interest even though he couldn't hear the words. This small boy who'd been so desperate for connection that he'd eaten an entire meal just because someone had finally talked to him in his own language. I thought about my brother, Danny, who was 10 now and struggling in a public school system that didn't have enough resources for deaf students. I thought about my mother, whose medications kept getting more expensive while her insurance covered less and less. I thought about the stack of bills on my kitchen counter that I'd been staring at for weeks, wondering which ones I could ignore a little longer. And I thought about the man sitting across from me, dangerous, powerful, clearly used to getting whatever he wanted. A man whose name made people whisper and whose presence made entire restaurants go quiet. A man who was looking at me like I held the solution to his most desperate problem. I need to take care of I said carefully. My mother is sick. My brother needs specialized therapy. If I do this, I need to know they'll be taken care of. Done, Marchetti said immediately. Give me their information. Medical bills, therapy costs, anything they need. It's handled. Just like that? Just like that. He leaned forward slightly. I take care of what's mine, Maya. And if you accept this position, you'll be mine to protect. The possessiveness in his tone should have frightened me. Instead, it sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. And if I say no? His smile was cold. Then you walk out that door, and I find another way to help my son. But I should warn you, my methods aren't always pleasant for those who refuse me. There it was, the threat beneath the velvet. Luca tugged on my sleeve, getting my attention. Please stay, he signed, his small face pleading. Please. I'll be good. I promise. I'll eat all my vegetables and do my homework and everything. Just please don't leave, like everyone else does. My heart broke. Everyone else? All my other tutors. He signed. They leave after a few weeks. Papa says it's because they have other jobs or they move away, but I think it's because I'm too much trouble. Because I can't hear right. Because I'm broken. Oh, sweetheart. I reached out without thinking, cupping his small face in my hands. I couldn't sign like this, so I just looked into his eyes, hoping he could read the truth in my expression. You're not broken. You're perfect exactly as you are. He leaned into my touch, this small boy who carried far too much pain for someone so young. I looked at his father and saw the same pain reflected there, hidden beneath layers of control and power. 1 month, I said. Trial period. I'll tutor Luca for 1 month. After that, we reassess. And I want everything in writing, payment, job description, expectations. All of it. Marchetti's smile was triumphant. Done. My lawyer will have a contract ready by tomorrow. And one more thing. I drive myself to and from your house. I'm not getting into a car with strange men. One of the security guards snorted. Marchetti shot him a look that could have melted steel. Agreed, he said. Though I will need your address to send some security upgrades to your home. Standard protocol for anyone associated with my family. Associated with your family? I repeated. I'm just a tutor. No. Marchetti stood, helping Luca out of his chair. You're much more than that now. You're someone my son needs, which makes you valuable. And anything valuable needs to be protected. He pulled out a business card, writing something on the back. My private number, and my address. Come tomorrow at 4 p.m. Bring whatever materials you need for tutoring. I took the card with numb fingers, staring at the elegant script. Luca signed goodbye, his small hands moving in the formal sign he'd probably been taught in his limited ASL classes. But then he did something unexpected. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around my waist, hugging me tightly. I froze for a moment, then gently hugged him back, feeling his small body relax against me. When he pulled away, he signed, "Thank you for the stars." "Anytime," I signed back. I watched them leave Dominic Marchetti, his security detail, and his small son, who kept turning back to wave at me until they disappeared through the restaurant's heavy doors. The noise of the restaurant rushed back in. Conversations resumed, silverware clinked. Life continued as if the last 30 minutes hadn't just completely upended my entire existence. "Maya." Antonio appeared beside me, his face pale. "What did you just do?" "I have no idea," I admitted. "Do you know who that man is? What he does?" "I have some idea. And you agreed to work for him?" I thought about Luca's pleading eyes, about my mother's medication bills, about Danny's therapy sessions we could barely afford. "I didn't have a choice," I said, quietly. Antonio laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "None of us have choices when it comes to men like Dominic Marchetti. He makes the choices for us." He gripped my shoulder. "Be careful, Maya. Very careful. Men like him, they don't just employ people, they own them." I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The afternoon sun was already setting. Winter in Chicago meant darkness came early and the temperature was dropping fast. My apartment building was in a neighborhood that real estate agents generously called up and coming. Everyone else just called it rough. But the rent was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to our unit, my legs heavy with exhaustion and shock. Before I could even get my key in the lock, the door flew open. "Maya!" Danny launched himself at me, his small arms wrapping around my waist in a hug that mirrored Luca's from earlier. I hugged him back, feeling the familiar shape of his hearing aids beneath my palms. Danny had been born with progressive hearing loss. By the time he was 7 Luca's age, he'd been completely deaf. "How was school?" I signed when he pulled back. His face fell. "The same. Nobody wants to play with me because they say I talk funny. Mrs. Rodriguez yelled at me for not answering her even though I told her 1,000,000 times I can't hear her. My heart ached. This was exactly why I'd agreed to help Luca. Because I knew what it was like to watch someone you love struggle in a world that wasn't built for them. "It'll get better," I promised, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "Will it?" Danny's hands moved with a sadness that was far too old for 10. "Or will I just get used to people treating me like I'm stupid?" "What's going on?" My mother appeared in the doorway, leaning heavily on her walker. At 53, she looked older, worn down by the MS that had been slowly stealing her mobility for the past 5 years. "Just tired, I said, helping her back to her chair in the living room. "Long shift. You're always tired, Mija." She studied my face. "Something's different. What happened?" I should have known I couldn't hide anything from her. I might have a new job. "What kind of job?" "Tutoring. Teaching ASL to a little boy." Her eyes narrowed. "Must be some kind of tutoring to have you looking like you've seen a ghost." I hesitated, then decided there was no point in lying. She'd find out eventually. "The client is Dominic Marchetti." The color drained from her face. "The Marchetti? Mija, no. Tell me you didn't agree to work for that man. His son is deaf. He's 7 years old and he's been struggling to communicate, and he was so lonely, Mama. And now you've caught the attention of one of the most dangerous men in Chicago." She grabbed my hand with fingers that trembled from more than just her disease. "Do you know what happens to people who get involved with families like his? I'm just tutoring. His son. There's no such thing as just anything with men like Marchetti." Her grip tightened. "Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me." "I promise," I said, though I had no idea if it was a promise I could keep. That night, I lay in my narrow bed in the room I shared with Danny, listening to my brother's soft breathing from the other side of the curtain we'd hung to give us each some privacy. I pulled out Dominic Marchetti's business card, running my thumb over the embossed lettering. Tomorrow, at 4 p.m., my life would change. I'd step into a world I knew nothing about, working for a man everyone feared, teaching a little boy who reminded me far too much of my own brother. I should have been terrified. Instead, all I could think about was Luca's face when he'd seen me sign for the first time. That moment of pure joy, when he realized someone finally understood him. Whatever came next, danger, complications, consequences. I couldn't begin to imagine that moment had been worth it. I just hoped I'd still feel that way when I learned what the cost would be. The address on Dominic Marchetti's business card led me to a neighborhood I'd only seen from a distance. Lake Forest, where old money lived behind iron gates and manicured hedges, where the houses had names instead of numbers, where people like me only came to clean or serve. I'd spent the morning shopping for teaching materials with money I didn't have, charging everything to a credit card that was already maxed out. Flashcards, picture books, workbooks designed for deaf children. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. My car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic, with a temperamental engine and a passenger door that only opened from the inside, looked obscene on these pristine streets. I drove slowly, acutely aware of how much I didn't belong here. The Marchetti estate wasn't just a house. It was a compound. Stone walls at least 8 feet high surrounded the property, topped with security, cameras that tracked my approach. The gate was solid iron, ornate but imposing, with an intercom system that looked more advanced than anything I'd ever seen. I pressed the call button with a shaking finger. Name and purpose. The voice was male, professional, completely neutral. "Maya Santos. I'm here to tutor Luca." A pause. Then the gate swung open silently, revealing a driveway that curved through grounds that belonged in a magazine. Perfectly maintained lawns despite the late November cold. Trees that had probably been planted before I was born. Flower beds prepared for winter, everything precise and controlled. The house itself took my breath away. 3 stories of pale stone and massive windows, with columns framing the entrance like something from a movie. My entire apartment building could have fit inside it with room to spare. I parked my sad little car in the circular drive, feeling more out of place with every second. Before I could even open my door, it opened for little man. Me from the outside. A man in a dark suit stood there, his expression carefully blank. "Miss Santos, Mr. Marchetti is expecting you." I grabbed my bag of teaching materials and followed him up marble steps to a door that probably cost more than my car. Inside, the entrance hall was all soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers, art on the walls that even I recognized as expensive. "This way, please." He led me through a maze of rooms, a formal living room with furniture that looked too perfect to sit on, a dining room with a table that could seat 20, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, until we reached what appeared to be a less formal family room. And there, curled up on a leather sofa with a book in his lap, was Luca. He looked up as I entered, and his whole face transformed. He scrambled off the couch, the book falling forgotten to the floor, and ran toward me. "You came," he signed, bouncing on his toes. "Papa said you would, but I was worried you might change your mind like Miss Rebecca did, and Miss Amanda and Miss Sarah." I promised I would come. I signed back, kneeling so I was at his level. And I always keep my promises. Miss Santos. Dominic Marchetti's voice came from behind me, and I turned to find him standing in the doorway. He looked different from yesterday, less formal in dark jeans and a black sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders, but no less intimidating. His dark eyes assessed me with the same calculating intensity. Mr. Marchetti. I stood, trying not to show how nervous I was. Dominic, he corrected. If you're going to be spending significant time with my son, we should dispense with formalities. He moved into the room with that same predatory grace I'd noticed yesterday. I trust you found the house without difficulty? Your directions were very clear. Good. He gestured to the sofa. Please, sit. We should discuss the arrangement before you begin. I sat, intensely aware of him settling into the chair across from me. Luca immediately climbed onto the sofa beside me, sitting closer than strictly necessary, as if afraid I might disappear. Dominic pulled a folder from the side table and handed it to me. The contract we discussed. My lawyer drew it up this morning. I opened it with trembling fingers. The document was intimidatingly official, full of legal language I barely understood. But the key points were clear. Employment term. 1-month trial period, renewable by mutual agreement. Compensation. $1,000 per week, paid in advance each Monday. Hours. 2 hours daily. 6 days per week. Fun day off. Responsibilities. ASL tutoring and communication facilitation for Luca Marchetti. And then, on the second page, additional provisions that made my stomach tighten. Employee agrees to maintain strict confidentiality regarding all family matters. Employee acknowledges the security requirements necessary for the Marchetti household. Employer agrees to provide necessary security, measures for employees' residents and family members, medical expenses for employees' immediate family to be covered by employer as part of compensation package. This last part, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. About my family. I had my people look into your situation, Dominic said, his tone matter of fact. Your mother has MS. Your brother is deaf and requires ongoing therapy. You've been managing alone since your father left 8 years ago. He leaned forward slightly. I told you I take care of what's mine. That includes the families of my employees. You investigated me. I wasn't sure if I should be angry or frightened. Of course. He didn't even have the grace to look apologetic. Did you think I would allow a stranger into my home, around my son, without knowing everything about them? Everything? Your employment history, your education, your financial situation, the restraining order you filed against your ex-boyfriend 2 years ago. His eyes darkened. Diego Reyes, currently working construction, lives in Pilsen, has a history of violence and substance abuse. My mouth went dry. How did you? I have resources. He said it like it was obvious. And now I know that you're not just a waitress who knows ASL. You're someone who's been fighting to keep her family afloat while dealing with an abusive ex, and a system that's failed you at every turn. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like he'd peeled back layers I'd worked hard to keep hidden. Why does any of that matter? Because it tells me who you are. Dominic's voice softened slightly. It tells me you're loyal, resourceful, and willing to sacrifice for the people you love. Those are qualities I value. Luca tugged on my sleeve, confused by the conversation he couldn't hear. What's wrong? He signed. Why do you look scared? I'm not scared, I assured him, forcing a smile. Just talking to your papa about grown-up stuff. Boring stuff? Very boring, I agreed. Dominic watched our exchange with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He trusts you already, he observed. That's rare. Luca has learned to be cautious around new people. Can you blame him? I asked before I could stop myself. From what he's told me, most people either ignore him or treat him like he's incapable. Something flashed in Dominic's eyes. Guilt, maybe, or pain. Which is exactly why you're here. He gestured to the contract. If the terms are acceptable, sign. If not, name what would make them acceptable. I read through the document again, my mind racing. The money alone was more than I'd dreamed of. The coverage for my mother's medical bills, for Danny's therapy, it was everything I needed and more. But there was a cost to accepting this. I'd be binding myself to Dominic Marchetti, to his world, to whatever consequences came with that connection. I thought about my mother's warning, about Antonio's fear, about everything I'd heard whispered about the Marchetti family. Then I looked at Luca, who was watching me with those hopeful eyes, and I knew I'd already made my decision the moment I'd knelt to help him in the restaurant. "I'll need a pen," I said quietly. Dominic's smile was triumphant. He produced a pen from his pocket, expensive, heavy, the kind of pen that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget, and handed it to me. I signed my name at the bottom of the contract, my handwriting shaky but legible. Maya Santos. Excellent. Dominic took the contract back, tucking it into the folder. "Welcome to my employment, Maya." The way he said it, my employment carried a possessive edge that sent a shiver down my spine. Luca, oblivious to the weight of what had just happened, bounced excitedly. "Does this mean you're really staying? You're going to teach me?" "That's exactly what it means," I signed, pushing aside my uncertainty to focus on him. "Are you ready to start learning?" Yes. Can we start right now?" "Absolutely. Show me where we'll be working." Luca grabbed my hand with complete trust and pulled me toward the door. I glanced back at Dominic, who was watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. "There's a study on the second floor that's been set up as a learning space," he said. "Everything you requested has been provided." "Requested?" "I didn't request anything." His smile was slight. "You will. I'm simply anticipating your needs." The study turned out to be bigger than my entire apartment. Bookshelves lined one wall. A large desk sat near windows that overlooked the grounds, and in one corner, a child-sized table and chairs had been set up, surrounded by educational materials that must have cost thousands of dollars. Flashcards, workbooks, picture books, puzzles, games, everything a specialized tutor could possibly need, and more. "Dominic did all this?" I asked aloud, forgetting that Luca couldn't hear me. He tugged my hand to get my attention. "Papa bought everything yesterday after we met you. He had people working all night to set it up. He said it had to be perfect." I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. This dangerous man, this person everyone feared, had stayed up all night making sure his son would have the perfect learning environment. "Your papa loves you very much," I signed. Luca's small face grew serious. "I know. He tries really hard, but he doesn't understand me. Not like you do. Nobody has ever understood me like you do." The weight of that trust, that desperate need for connection, settled over me like a mantle. "Then, let's make sure you have all the tools you need to communicate with everyone," I signed. "Not just me. We're going to work on your signing, your reading, everything, so that you never have to feel alone again. Promise?" "Promise." We spent the next 2 hours working. Luca was bright, eager to learn, soaking up everything I taught him like he'd been starving for it. Which, in a way, he had been. We practiced vocabulary, worked on sentence, structure, played games that reinforced sign language concepts. He showed me what he already knew, the basics he'd learned from his previous tutors, and I built on that foundation, correcting mistakes, introducing new signs, making it fun. Halfway through the session, a woman appeared in the doorway with a tray of snacks. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and an accent that suggested Eastern Europe. "Snack time," she announced, setting the tray on the desk. She glanced at me. "You must be Miss Santos. I'm Elena, the housekeeper. If you need anything, you let me know, yes?" "Thank you, Elena." She smiled at Luca and said something in what sounded like Russian. Luca smiled back but didn't respond, and I saw the familiar frustration cross Elena's face when she realized he hadn't understood. Elena brought us snacks. I signed to Luca. "What do you say?" He turned to Elena and signed. "Thank you," speaking the words aloud at the same time in that distinctive way deaf children who are learning to vocalize often do. Elena's face lit up. "Oh, he signed to me." She looked at me with something like wonder. "In 2 years, he has never. How did you do this?" "I just gave him a way to communicate," I said softly. After she left, Luca and I continued working until my phone alarm went off, signaling the end of our 2 hours. "Already?" Luca signed, his face falling. "But we just started." "That's how you know we were having fun," I signed back. "Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. But I'll be back tomorrow, same time. Promise?" "Promise." I gathered my materials, and Luca insisted on walking me downstairs. We found Dominic in what appeared to be his office, a masculine space of dark wood and leather, with a massive desk and windows overlooking the grounds. He looked up from his computer as we entered, his expression softening slightly when he saw his son. "How did it go?" he asked. "Very well," I said. "Luca is extremely bright. He's been picking things up, quickly." Papa! Luca ran to his father, and I watched as Dominic's entire demeanor changed. The cold businessman disappeared, replaced by a father who caught his son easily and lifted him onto his lap. Luca signed something rapidly, his small hands flying. Dominic's brow furrowed as he tried to follow, managing to catch maybe a third of what his son was saying. He's telling you about what we learned today, I translated. New signs for emotions: happy, sad, frustrated, excited. And we practiced telling stories using sign language. He's particularly proud that he learned how to sign dinosaur, because apparently he really likes dinosaurs. Dominic's eyes met mine, and I saw gratitude there. And something else. Something that made my breath catch. Thank you, he said quietly. Then, to Luca, he attempted to sign, I'm proud of you. His handshape was wrong, the movement awkward. But Luca understood the intent and beamed. Maya says you need to practice more. Luca signed to his father. She says if you practice every day, you'll get better. Like me. She's right, Dominic agreed, looking at me. Perhaps you could teach me as well. After Luca's lessons. That's not part of our agreement, I said carefully. Then we'll amend the agreement. He set Luca down gently. 20 minutes after each of Luca's sessions. I'll pay you extra. I don't need extra. I insist. His tone made it clear the matter wasn't open for discussion. If my son is going to become fluent in ASL, I need to be able to communicate with him properly, not stumble through basic signs like an amateur. I hesitated, then nodded. Learning ASL was a gift I could give this family, even if everything else about this situation made me uneasy. All right, 20 minutes. Starting tomorrow. Excellent. Dominic stood. I'll have Marco walk you to your car. Marco? As if summoned, one of the security men from the restaurant appeared in the doorway. Up close, I could see he was younger than I'd. First thought, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Miss Santos, he greeted me with a slight nod. I can walk myself to my car, I protested. Humor me, Dominic said. It's getting dark, and I prefer to know that everyone in my employ reaches their destination safely. There was no point arguing. I said goodbye to Luca, who made me promise 3 more times that I'd return tomorrow, and followed Marco out of the house. Mr. Marchetti is very protective of his son, Marco said as we walked. And now, by extension, of you. I'm just his son's tutor. Marco glanced at me, something like amusement in his eyes. If you believe that, you're more naive than you look. What's that supposed to mean? We'd reached my car. Marco opened the driver's side door for me, which required yanking it hard, since it stuck, and waited until I was settled inside. It means that Dominic Marchetti doesn't do anything halfway, he said. When he decides someone is valuable, to become part of his world. Protected, guarded, possessed. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Drive safely, Miss Santos, and check your rearview mirror. You'll notice a car following you home. That's us, making sure you arrive safely. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's not necessary. It is to Mr. Marchetti. Get used to it. Your life just got a lot more complicated. He closed my door and stepped back, and I started my protesting engine, my mind spinning. Sure enough, as I pulled away from the estate, I noticed a black SUV fall into place 2 cars behind me. Following, watching, protecting or surveilling, I wasn't sure there was a difference. The drive home felt longer than usual, hyper-aware as I was of my shadow. The SUV didn't leave until I'd parked in front of my building and made it safely inside. I climbed the stairs to our apartment, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. Inside, I found my mother at the kitchen table, bills spread out in front of her, her hands shaking as she tried to write out checks. Mama, I said gently, I told you I'd handle those. She looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. The MS medication, mija. The new one the doctor prescribed. Insurance denied it. Says it's not medically necessary. Her voice broke. It's $8,000 a month. We can't. There's no way. I thought about the contract I'd signed, about Dominic's promise to cover my family's medical expenses. It's going to be okay, I said, pulling out my phone. Let me make a call. Dominic answered on the first ring. Maya, is something wrong? The fact that he'd programmed my number into his phone already shouldn't have surprised me. My mother's medication. Insurance denied it. I know we discussed medical coverage in the contract, but I need to know. Text me the details. He interrupted. Doctor's name, medication, pharmacy. It will be handled within the hour. Just like that? Just like that. A pause. Maya, I told you. I take care of what's mine. Your family's health is no longer something you need to worry about. Consider it done. He ended the call before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd just made a deal with the devil. A benevolent devil, maybe, but still. Who was that? My mother asked. My new employer, I said quietly. He's going to take care of the medication. Her eyes widened. Mija, what have you gotten yourself into? If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. True to his word, within an hour. The pharmacy called. The medication had been approved, fully paid for, ready for pickup, no questions asked. I stared at my phone, processing what had just happened. Dominic Marchetti had solved an $8,000 problem with a single phone call, as if it was nothing, as if money was just a tool. He wielded to bend the world to his will. And now I owed him. Not just my work, but my gratitude, my loyalty. My mother was crying tears of relief, and Danny was asking what was happening, his hands flying in rapid signs. I explained as best I could, watching my brother's face light up when I told him that the tutoring job meant we could finally afford his therapy sessions twice a week instead of once. That night, as I lay in bed, I tried to convince myself I'd made the right choice. That working for Dominic Marchetti was just a job, that his interest in me was purely professional, and that the protective surveillance and the instant solving of my problems didn't mean anything more than a wealthy employer taking care of his staff. But I couldn't forget the way he'd looked at me in his office. The possessive edge in his voice when he said, my employment. The way Marco had warned me that my life had just gotten complicated. I'd stepped into something much bigger than a tutoring position. You could feel it in my bones. The way you sense a storm coming even before the sky darkens. The question was, would I survive it? The next few weeks passed in a blur of routine that began to feel almost normal. Almost. Every day at 4 p.m., I drove to the Marchetti estate. Every day, that black SUV followed me home. Every day, Luca greeted me with the same unbridled enthusiasm. His signing improving so rapidly it was like watching a flower bloom in time-lapse. And every day, after Luca's lesson, I spent 20 minutes with Dominic, teaching him the language his son spoke. Those 20 minutes were the hardest part of my day. Not because Dominic was a poor student, quite the opposite. He was focused, dedicated, practicing the signs I taught him with the same intensity he probably applied to his business dealings. His large hands, which I'd watched make his son feel safe, which I'd imagined could also kill without hesitation, moved with growing confidence through the vocabulary I taught. Pim. No, the difficulty was the intimacy of it. Teaching someone sign language requires touch, adjusting hand shapes, positioning fingers correctly, demonstrating the subtle differences between signs that looked similar but meant completely different things. Every time I touched Dominic's hand to correct his form, I felt electricity arc between us. Every time our eyes met as I demonstrated a sign, I saw something in his gaze that went far beyond teacher and student. Like this, he asked one evening, attempting to sign protect. His hand shape was close but not quite right. I took his hand in mine, adjusting his fingers, trying to ignore the warmth of his skin, the strength in those fingers. You need to move it forward more, I said, guiding his hand through the motion. Protection isn't static, it's active. You're creating a barrier between the danger and what you're protecting. His dark eyes met mine, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Show me again. I demonstrated the sign, hyper-aware of how close he was standing. See? It's all in the intention behind the movement. Intention, he repeated softly. Then, deliberately, he signed the word again, correctly this time, his eyes never leaving mine. The gesture felt less like a vocabulary lesson and more like a promise. Perfect. I managed, stepping back to put some distance between us. You're getting much better. I have an excellent teacher. He smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. Luca tells me you're the best teacher he's ever had, that you make him feel normal. He is normal, I said firmly. He just communicates differently. Most people don't see it that way. Most people are idiots. Dominic laughed, a genuine sound of surprise and delight. Yes, they are. He moved closer again, and I fought the urge to retreat. You're good for him, Maya. Good for us. I'm just doing my job. No, His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek so gently I might have imagined it. You're doing much more than that. Before I could respond, Luca burst into the room, his small face alight with excitement. Maya! Maya! Look what I can do! He proceeded to sign an entire story about a dinosaur and a spaceship, his hands flying so fast I could barely keep up. His vocabulary expanded far beyond what I'd explicitly taught him. That's amazing, I signed back, grateful for the interruption. You've been practicing. Every day. Elena has been learning signs too so she can talk to me. And Papa practices with me every night before bed. We're getting really good. I looked at Dominic, who was watching his son with undisguised pride and love. He's a different child, Dominic said quietly. 3 weeks ago, he barely spoke, barely ate. Now he won't stop talking, won't stop learning. You did that. We did that, I corrected. You're the one practicing with him every night, making him feel heard. Because you showed me how. His gaze intensified. I won't forget that, Maya. I don't forget debts. The way he said it made it sound less like gratitude and more like a vow. That night, as my black SUV shadow followed me home, I realized Marco had been right. My life had become irrevocably complicated. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, I'd stopped thinking of the Marchetti house as a workplace and started thinking of it as something dangerously close to home. I'd stopped seeing Luca as just a student and started caring about him with a fierceness that went beyond professional obligation. And I'd stopped seeing Dominic as just a dangerous employer and started noticing the way his eyes crinkled when Luca made him laugh, the gentleness in his hands when he tucked his son into bed, the vulnerability he showed only when he thought no one was watching. I was falling into something I didn't understand, something that felt inevitable and terrifying in equal measure. And the worst part, I wasn't sure I wanted to stop. It was 2 weeks and 4 days into my employment when everything changed. I was driving home later than usual. Luca had been particularly excited about a new book I'd brought him, and we'd gone over our time when I noticed something wrong. The black SUV that usually followed me wasn't there. At first I thought maybe they'd decided I didn't need constant surveillance anymore, that I'd proven myself trustworthy enough to drive home alone. Then I saw the car behind me, not the subtle black SUV driven by professionals. This was a beaten-up sedan, dark blue, with a cracked windshield, and it wasn't maintaining the discreet distance my usual shadows did. It was close, too close. My heart began to race. I took a turn I didn't need to take, testing. The sedan followed. Another turn. Still following. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I was still 10 minutes from home, driving through a neighborhood that got rougher after dark. There were no black SUVs in sight. No protection. No help. Just me and whoever was in that sedan. I fumbled for my phone, trying to dial Dominic's number while keeping my eyes on the road. Before I could connect the call, the sedan accelerated, pulling up alongside me. In the driver's seat, illuminated by passing streetlights, I saw a face that made my blood run cold. Diego, my ex-boyfriend. The one I'd gotten a restraining order against 2 years ago, after he'd put me in the hospital with broken ribs and a fractured wrist. He gestured violently for me to pull over, his face twisted with rage even through the window. I pressed the gas, my old Honda's engine protesting as I tried to outrun him. But his car was faster, newer, better maintained. He pulled ahead of me, then slammed on his brakes. I swerved, barely avoiding a collision, my car jumping the curb and coming to a shuddering stop against a light pole. The impact wasn't hard enough to deploy the airbag, but it knocked the wind out of me, sent my phone flying somewhere into the passenger side, footwell. Before I could recover, my door was yanked open from the outside, since the internal handle still didn't work. Diego grabbed my arm with bruising force and hauled me out of the car. 2 years, he snarled, his breath reeking of alcohol. 2 years you've been ignoring me, blocking my calls, hiding behind that fucking restraining order. Let me go. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. You're violating. I don't give a fuck about the restraining order. He slammed me against my car, and I felt the old terror flooding back. The helplessness, the certainty that no one would come to help me. You think you can just move on? Get some fancy new job? I've been watching you, Maya. Watching you drive off to that mansion every day in your piece of shit car. What are you doing there, huh? Who are you fucking? I'm working. I'm a tutor. Bullshit. He leaned closer, and I turned my face away, trying not to breathe in the mixture of alcohol and rage. I know who lives in that house. Dominic fucking Marchetti. You think you can trade up? Think some mafia boss is going to want trash like you? His hand moved to my throat, and panic surged through me. This was worse than before. Worse than the times he'd hit me, pushed me, left bruises I'd hidden under long sleeves. This was rage and jealousy and alcohol, a combination that could turn deadly. Please, I gasped. Diego, please. You were mine, he hissed. You'll always be mine. If I can't have you, no one. He didn't finish the sentence. One moment he was there, his hand on my throat, his body pinning me against my car. The next, he was flying backward, hitting the ground hard enough that I heard the impact. Dominic Marchetti stood where Diego had been, his expression colder than anything I'd ever seen. Behind him, Marco and another security guard emerged from a black SUV that had appeared from nowhere. Get up, Dominic said to Diego, his voice soft and more terrifying for it. Diego scrambled to his feet, and I saw fear replace the rage in his eyes. Look, man, this is between me and my girl. She's not your girl. Dominic moved forward, and Diego backed up involuntarily. She's under my protection, which you've just violated. I didn't know, the restraining order. It's just, you put your hands on her. Dominic's voice dropped even lower. That was your first mistake. Your last mistake was doing it while she's under my protection. Please, I'm sorry, I'll leave, I won't. Dominic nodded to Marco, who moved forward with the other guard. They grabbed Diego's arms, holding him in place. Then Dominic turned to me, and the cold mask fell away, replaced by concern so fierce it took my breath away. Maya, are you hurt? I shook my head, but my hands were trembling, my throat aching where Diego had grabbed me. I'm okay. I wasn't okay. My knees gave out, and Dominic caught me before I hit the ground, pulling me against his chest with surprising gentleness. You're safe, he murmured against my hair. I've got you. You're safe now. And despite everything, the violence, the danger, the fact that I was being held by a man as dangerous as the one who'd just attacked me, I believed him. I was safe. Behind us, I heard Marco on the phone, his voice clinical as he reported something. Heard Diego begging, pleading, promising things he'd never deliver. Dominic's arms tightened around me, and I felt the tension in his body, the barely controlled rage. Take him, Dominic said to his men, his voice still holding that dangerous softness. I'll deal with him later. No, I said, pulling back to look at him. Dominic, no. Just call the police. Let them handle it. The restraining order. The police? His laugh was harsh. The police who didn't protect you before? Who let him violate the order again and again? No, Maya. This ends tonight. Please. I gripped his arms, feeling the tension in his muscles. Please don't. Kill him. Not for me. I'm not worth. His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. You're worth everything, he said fiercely. And no one touches what's mine and walks away unscathed. Mine. There was that word again. That possessive claim that should have frightened me but instead made me feel protected for the first time in years. I don't want his death on my conscience, I whispered. Dominic studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded once and turned to Marco. Make sure he understands the consequences of coming near her again. Make sure he understands in a way he'll never forget. But leave him breathing. Marco smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Understood, sir. They dragged Diego away, his protests fading as they shoved him into one of the SUVs. Then it was just me and Dominic, standing in the pool of a streetlight, my car damaged, my hands still shaking. Come on, Dominic said gently. Let's get you home. My car will be dealt with. Right now, you're coming with me. He guided me to his SUV, settled me in the back seat, and slid in beside me. The driver pulled away smoothly, and I realized we weren't heading toward my apartment. Where are we going? My house, Dominic said. You're not staying alone tonight. I can't. Just my mother, my brother, are already being taken care of. I sent a security team to your apartment the moment my men lost sight of your car. Your family is safe, and they've been informed that you'll be staying with us tonight. Of course he had. Because Dominic Marchetti didn't just react to problems. He anticipated them, controlled them, resolved them before they could escalate. How did you know? I asked. How did you find me? Your car has a tracker, he said simply. Installed the second day you worked for me. When it stopped moving unexpectedly and my men couldn't reach you, I came personally. You've been tracking me? I told you. I protect what's mine. He looked at me, his dark eyes intense. And you're mine, Maya. You have been since the moment you knelt beside my son and spoke to him in a language he understood. You just didn't know it yet. I should have been angry. Should have felt violated by the surveillance, by his possessive claim, by his assumption that he had any right to control my movements. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. Something that felt dangerously like belonging. I'm not your possession, I said weakly. His smile was slight, knowing. No, you're much more than that. You're essential. The Marchetti estate looked different at night, more imposing somehow. The lights in the windows made it seem less like a house and more like a fortress, standing guard against the darkness. Dominic's hand was warm and steady at the small of my back as he guided me inside. Elena appeared immediately, her face creased with concern. Miss Maya, Mr. Marchetti called. Said you had trouble. Come, I make tea, yes? Something to calm the nerves. Thank you, Elena, but tea, Dominic said firmly, and something to eat. When did you last have a meal? I tried to remember. Breakfast? No, I'd skipped it. Lunch had been a granola bar between morning errands. I'm not hungry. His expression made it clear he didn't believe me. Elena, please prepare something light. Soup, perhaps, and tea. Elena bustled away, leaving us in the grand foyer. I was acutely aware of how out of place I looked, jeans and a sweater that had seen better days, my hair falling out of its ponytail, a bruise already forming on my arm where Diego had grabbed me. Dominic's eyes tracked to that bruise, and his jaw tightened. Let me see. It's nothing. Let me see, he repeated, his voice soft but implacable. I extended my arm, and he took it gently in both hands, his fingers feather-light as he examined the darkening marks. 4 distinct finger-shaped bruises. Evidence. I should have let Marco kill him, Dominic said, so quietly I almost missed it. You did the right thing, did I? His eyes met mine, and I saw violence simmering beneath the controlled surface. Because right now, knowing he put his hands on you, knowing he could have done worse if I'd been 30 seconds later right now, I'm regretting mercy. Dominic. Papa? We both turned to find Luca at the top of the stairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes. He wore pajamas covered in dinosaurs, his hair mussed, Mr. Whiskers tucked under one arm. What's wrong? He signed, his small face concerned. I heard the cars, and Elena is upset. Dominic released my arm and moved to the stairs. Everything is fine, he signed, his movements still slightly awkward but understandable. Miss Maya had some trouble with her car, so she's staying with us tonight. Luca's eyes widened, and his face transformed from concern to delight. Really? She's sleeping here? In one of the guest rooms, Dominic confirmed. Luca flew down the stairs and launched himself at me, wrapping his small arms around my waist. I caught him automatically, hugging him back, feeling some of the tension leave my body at his uncomplicated affection. This is the best day ever, he signed when he pulled back. Can we have breakfast together in the morning? I can show you my room properly. And the library. And the garden. There's a pond with koi fish and it's late. I interrupted gently. You should be in bed. But you're here. And I'll still be here in the morning, I promised. We can have breakfast together, but only if you go back to bed now. He pouted but nodded. Dominic scooped him up, settling him on his hip despite the fact that Luca was getting too big for it. The gesture was so natural, so tender, that it made my chest ache. I'll be right back, Dominic said to me. Don't move. I nodded, watching as he carried his son up the stairs, Luca's head already drooping against his father's shoulder. Elena reappeared with a tray. Come, Miss Maya. Sitting room? Yes? More comfortable. I followed her to a smaller, cozier room off the main living area. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and soft lamps cast warm light over furniture that looked actually meant to be sat on. Elena set the tray on a coffee table tea in a delicate china pot, soup that smelled like heaven, fresh bread, and what looked like homemade cookies. You eat, she commanded. All of it. Too skinny you are. Mr. Marchetti doesn't like his people not eating properly. His people, I repeated, amused despite everything. Yes, his people. Elena's expression turned serious. He takes care of his people, Miss Maya. Very good care. But also very protective. You understand? I'm beginning to. She patted my shoulder. Is good. You're good for little Luca. Good for Mr. Marchetti, too. He smiles more now. Laughs. Is more human. She smiled. Eat. I bring you clothes for sleeping, yes? After she left, I managed a few spoonfuls of soup, which was delicious before Dominic, then returned. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up the sleeves of his black shirt, and looked slightly less intimidating. Only slightly. Luca asleep? I asked. Barely. He made me promise 3 times that you'd really be here in the morning. He settled into the chair across from me. Eat, Maya. All of it. You're very bossy. I prefer decisive. His lips quirked. And you're very stubborn. I prefer independent. We looked at each other, and something in the air shifted. The fear and adrenaline from earlier began to fade, replaced by awareness that had been building for weeks. Thank you, I said quietly. For tonight. For everything. You don't need to thank me for protecting you. It's not a favor, Maya. It's a necessity. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Tell me about Diego Reyes. Tell me everything. There's not much to tell. We dated when I was 21, right after my father left. I was vulnerable, stupid, thought I could fix him. I stared into my tea. Bye. And the time I realized he was dangerous, it was too late. He was jealous, controlling, started with pushing, then hitting. The final time, he put me in the hospital. Which is when you filed the restraining order. Yes, but it's just a piece of paper. He's violated it 6 times in 2 years. The police talk to him. He promises to stay away. Then a few months later, he's back. Tonight was the worst, though. He's never been that violent before. He won't be violent again, Dominic said with absolute certainty. What will your men do to him? Whatever is necessary to ensure he understands that you are permanently off limits. His dark eyes met mine. Does that frighten you, knowing I'm capable of violence? I should have said yes. Should have been horrified. But I thought about Diego's hand on my throat, about the terror I'd felt, about years of looking over my shoulder and sleeping with one eye open. No, I admitted. It should, but it doesn't. Good. He stood, moving to sit beside. Tell me on the sofa, close enough that I could feel his warmth. Because I need you to understand something, Maya. What happened tonight changes things. Changes things how? You can't go back to your apartment. Not while Diego is still breathing, still capable of finding you. Dominic, I can't just abandon my family. I'm not asking you to. He turned to face me fully. I'm asking you to bring them here. Your mother, your brother. There are 10 bedrooms in this house, most of them empty. Move them here, where they'll be safe, where they'll be cared for properly. I stared at him. You want my entire family to move into your house? Yes. That's insane. Is it? Your mother needs constant care. Your brother needs a stable environment and access to the best educational resources. I can provide all of that. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. And you need to know they're safe. That you're all safe. Let me give you that peace of mind. Why? The question burst out of me. Why are you doing all this? I'm just your son's tutor. This is way beyond. You're not just anything, he interrupted. You're the woman who gave my son his voice back. The woman who makes him smile every single day. The woman who's been teaching me patience and gentleness and how to be a better father. His hand cupped my cheek. You're the woman I can't stop thinking about, even when I know I shouldn't. Even when I know I'm probably the last thing you need in your complicated life. My breath caught. Dominic, I know this is fast. I know I'm overwhelming. It's who I am when I want something. I pursue it completely. And I want you, Maya. Not just as Luca's tutor. Not just as someone in my employ. I want you in my life. In my home. In my... He stopped himself. But I'm willing to be patient. To let you come to this in your own time. Come to what? His smile was slow, dangerous, devastating. To the inevitable conclusion that you belong here. With us. I have argued. Should have maintained boundaries. Should have reminded him that this was inappropriate. That he was my employer. That the power imbalance made this impossible. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my eyes drifting closed. This is a terrible idea. Probably. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. Are you going to run? I opened my eyes. No. Good. He stood abruptly, and I felt the loss of his presence like a physical thing. Elena prepared a guest room for you. East wing, 3rd door on the left. Everything you need should be there. If not, press the intercom and someone will bring it. You're leaving? If I stay, I'll kiss you. His eyes were dark with want. And if I kiss you tonight, After everything that's happened, you'll think it's just adrenaline, just fear-seeking comfort. When I kiss you, Maya and I will kiss you. I want you to have no doubts about what it means." He moved to the door, then paused. "Your family. Think about my offer. Take all the time you need. But know that the invitation stands. Permanently." After he left, I sat in the quiet room, my tea cooling, my mind spinning. Move my family here. Into Dominic Marchetti's home. Into his world. Into his life. It was insane. Impossible. A line that, once crossed, would change everything. And yet, as I climbed the stairs to the guest room Elena had prepared, which turned out to be bigger than my entire apartment, with an attached bathroom that looked like something from a magazine, I couldn't deny the appeal. Safety, security, the ability to stop constantly worrying about money, about bills, about whether my mother was getting proper care, or my brother was getting the education he deserved. All of it available if I just said yes. The bed was impossibly soft, the sheets smelling faintly of lavender. I lay awake for hours, watching moonlight paint patterns on the ceiling, thinking about dangerous men with gentle hands and little boys who just wanted someone to tactive it, understand them. Thinking about belonging. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and, for a moment, couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came flooding back. Diego, Dominic, the offer that had kept me awake half the night, a soft knock at the door. "Miss Maya, are you awake?" "Elena." I sat up, running fingers through my tangled hair. "Come in." She entered with another tray, this one loaded with coffee, fresh pastries, and fruit. "Good morning, mister. Marchetti says you should take your time. Luca is having lessons with his regular tutor until you're ready. And I brought clothes Mr. Marchetti had his assistant shop for you this morning. Very early this morning." She smiled knowingly. I looked at the bags she'd set on the chair. Designer labels I recognized. Clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "He can't just buy me clothes. He can do whatever he wants." Elena said it matter-of-factly. "Is who he is. And you are someone he's decided to take care of. So now he takes care of you. Is that simple?" After she left, I showered in the enormous bathroom, then examined the clothes Dominic's assistant had bought. Everything in my size. How did he even know my size? And in colors that suited me. Jeans that actually fit properly. Soft sweaters. Even undergarments. Which made me blush. I dressed in jeans and a cashmere sweater that felt like a cloud against my skin, then ventured downstairs. Voices led me to the informal dining room, where I found Luca eating breakfast and chattering away in sign language to a woman I didn't recognize. She was elderly, with sharp eyes and a patient smile, and she was signing back with perfect fluency. "Maya!" Luca spotted me and immediately abandoned his breakfast. "You're really here. Papa said you'd be here, but I thought maybe I dreamed it." "I'm really here," I confirmed, hugging him. "Who's your friend?" "This is Mrs. Chen, my regular tutor. She's teaching me about fractions. It's boring." "Mrs." Chen laughed, a sound I could tell was warm even though I'd just met her. "Fractions are not boring, young man. They're the building blocks of mathematics. And you must be Maya," she said, extending her hand to me. "I've heard so much about you. Luca talks about you constantly. Maya taught me this sign. Maya showed me that book. You've made quite an impression. Mrs. Chen has been wonderful," I said, shaking her hand. "I know Luca's signing has improved even beyond what I've taught him. That's your influence. We make a good team then." She smiled. "And between you and me, thank God someone finally got through to Dominic about the importance of learning ASL properly. That man is brilliant in many ways, but stubborn as a mule." "I heard that, Sophia." We both turned to find Dominic in the doorway, dressed casually in dark jeans and a gray sweater, holding a cup of coffee. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered, and he looked more relaxed than I'd seen him. "You were meant to, Mrs. Chen said without any apparent fear. "Someone needs to keep that ego of yours in check. That's why I pay you such exorbitant fees," Dominic replied, but there was warmth in his tone. He looked at me. "Good morning, Maya. I trust you slept well?" "Eventually." I couldn't quite meet his eyes, hyper-aware of Luca and Mrs. Chen watching our interaction. "Thank you for the hospitality. It's not hospitality when it's your home." Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly, but she said nothing. Luca, oblivious to the undercurrents, tugged my hand. "Can we skip fractions and do fun learning instead, please?" Fractions are important, I signed back. And Mrs. Chen is an excellent teacher. Listen to her. Fine, he sighed dramatically. But after fractions, you'll teach me? After fractions, I agreed. Dominic guided me out of the dining room with that proprietary hand at the small of my back. We need to talk. He led me to his office and closed the door, creating a bubble of privacy. Through the windows, I could see the ground stretching toward the lake, everything manicured and perfect. Diego Reyes is in the hospital, Dominic said without preamble. Multiple contusions, a dislocated shoulder, 2 broken fingers. He'll recover fully, but my men made sure he understood the consequences of ever approaching you again. I should have felt horror. Instead, I felt relief. Will he press charges against your men? Dominic's smile was cold. He won't, because if he does, certain information about his activities, drug dealing, assault charges that were mysteriously dropped, parole violations will find its way to the appropriate authorities. He understands that staying silent and staying away from you is his only path to freedom. Thank you. You don't need to thank me for protecting you, he said for the second time. But you do need to give me an answer about your family. I moved to the window, trying to organize my thoughts. It's too much. Dominic. The clothes this morning, the offer to move my family. Is it too much? Or are you not used to being cared for? He came to stand beside me. You've spent years taking care of everyone else, Maya. Your mother, your brother, your patients when you were working toward your teaching degree. Let someone take care of you for once. And what do you get out of this? I turned to face him. Be honest. What do you really want? Honestly? His hand came up, tucking hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. I want to come home every evening and hear my son's laughter. I want to walk into my kitchen and find you making dinner, arguing with Elena about proper seasoning. I want to wake up and know that you're under my roof, safe, protected, mine. That's not a job description. That's a relationship, he finished. Yes, that's what I want, Maya. You, Luca, your family, all of us under one roof. A real family, not just a business arrangement. My heart hammered against my ribs. I barely know you. You know I love my son more than life itself. You know I keep my promises. You know I'll protect what's mine with everything I have. He stepped closer. What else do you need to know? What you do. The business everyone whispers about. The reason you have armed guards and security cameras and enemies who might target people I care about. He finished. Yes, I won't lie to you about that. My business has complications. Not everything I do operates within legal boundaries. I have rivals, enemies, people who would use anyone I care about as leverage against me. That's exactly why I should say no. Or it's exactly why you should say yes. His hand cupped my face. Here, I can protect you. All of you. Out there, in your ground floor apartment with locks that don't work properly, with a brother who can't hear danger approaching, and a mother who can't run from it out there. You're vulnerable. And now that Diego knows about your connection to me, you're even more at risk. You're saying I don't have a choice. You always have a choice. But I'm hoping you'll choose us. I looked into his dark eyes and saw truth there. Desire, yes. Possession, absolutely. But also genuine care, real concern. The kind of devotion he showed his son extended to include me. I need to talk to my mother, I said finally. This affects her and Danny too. They deserve a say. Of course. He pulled out his phone. I'll send a car for them. They can see the house, meet Luca, and then all of you can make an informed decision together. Within an hour, my mother and Danny arrived, brought by Marco in one of the black SUVs. Danny's eyes were huge as he took in the mansion, and my mother's face was carefully neutral. Her poker face, the one she used when she didn't want me to know what she was thinking. Luca immediately latched onto Danny, delighted to discover another deaf person. The two boys started signing to each other, their hands, flying as they discovered shared experiences, shared frustrations, shared joy in finally finding someone who understood. Your house is huge. Danny signed to Luca. Do you have a pool? Yes, and a game room, and a room just for movies. Want to see? They disappeared together, Mrs. Chen following at a discreet distance to supervise, leaving my mother alone with me and Dominic in the formal living room. Mrs. Santos, Dominic said, his voice respectful. Thank you for coming. My mother's eyes swept over him, assessing in the way only mothers can. You're the man who's turned my daughter's life upside down. Mama, I protested. It's all right. Dominic settled into a chair across from us. You're right to be concerned. I have turned her life upside down. The question is whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. That depends on your intentions. My intentions are to provide safety and security for your family, to give Maya an opportunity to use her talents without constantly worrying about bills and medications and whether she can afford groceries. He leaned forward. And yes, my intentions include pursuing a relationship with your daughter. I won't lie about that. My mother was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're a dangerous man, Mr. Marchetti. Yes, you do things that aren't legal. Some of them. You have enemies. Several. And you want to bring my children into that world? My grandson? I want to bring them into my protection, Dominic corrected. There's danger in the world, Mrs. Santos. You know that better than most. Your daughter's been attacked by her ex-boyfriend 6 times in 2 years. She works herself to exhaustion trying to cover medical bills that insurance refuses to pay. She can't afford therapy for your grandson, can barely afford food for herself. His voice softened. I can fix all of that. I can give all of you a life without constant struggle. At what cost? The cost of accepting that I'm not a conventional man with a conventional life. The cost of living under my roof, accepting my protection, and becoming part of my world. He looked at me. The cost of Maya taking a chance on something that might be complicated and difficult, but could also be extraordinarily good. My mother turned to me. What do you want, Mija? I thought about the past 3 weeks, about Luca's joy every time I arrived, about the way Dominic looked at me, like I was precious, about Elena's kindness and Mrs. Chen's warmth and the feeling of safety I'd had last night, knowing that Dominic would move heaven and earth to protect me. I thought about my cramped apartment, my mother struggling alone when I wasn't there, Danny isolated from other deaf children, the constant worry about money and safety and whether we'd make it another month. I want to say yes, I admitted, but I'm terrified. Fear is healthy, my mother said. It keeps us cautious. She looked at Dominic. But terror is exhausting, and we've been living in terror for years. Different kinds, medical, financial, physical. Maybe it's time to try a different kind of fear. Is that a yes? Dominic asked. It's a trial period, my mother said firmly. 1 month, like Maya's original contract. We move in, see how it works, make sure this is genuine and not some. She waved her hand, searching for words. Obsession that will fade, I supplied. Yes. If after 1 month, this still seems like a good idea, we make it permanent. But if any of us feels unsafe or uncomfortable, we leave. No questions, no consequences. Dominic stood, extending his hand to my mother. Agreed. Though I should warn you, I'm very good at making people want to stay. My mother shook his hand. We'll see about that. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of activity. Dominic sent movers to our apartment, professional, efficient people who packed our entire life into boxes in under 4 hours. Our furniture went into storage. You won't need it, but if you want to keep it, I'll cover the storage fees, Dominic had said. Our clothes, books, personal items were transported to the Marchetti estate. My mother was given a suite on the first-floor bedroom, sitting room, and a bathroom modified for her mobility needs. Medical equipment appeared: a better wheelchair, a shower chair, grab bars installed overnight. Nurse practitioners were scheduled to visit 3 times a week. Danny got a room next to Luca's, the 2 boys already inseparable. A tutor was hired, a young woman fluent in ASL who specialized in deaf education. Therapy sessions were scheduled at a facility I'd only dreamed of affording. And I was given a suite in the East Wing, not a guest room, but a permanent space. Bedroom, sitting room, bathroom, even a small office area. My clothes, both the ones I'd brought and new ones that kept appearing, filled the walk-in closet. My books lined the built-in shelves. My grandmother's photo sat on the nightstand. It felt like home faster than it should have. Is this weird? I asked Danny one evening as we sat in Luca's room, the 2 boys building an elaborate Lego city on the floor. Weird how? He signed back. Living here. With them. This whole situation. Danny considered, his hands moving thoughtfully. It's different. But different isn't bad. Luca is my first real friend who gets it, who doesn't make me feel weird for being deaf. And the food is amazing. And I have my own bathroom. He smiled. Plus, Mr. Marchetti is kind of scary but also kind of cool. Did you know he has a collection of old motorcycles in one of the garages? He said he'd teach me about engines when I'm older. Did he? And Mama looks happier, less tired, less worried. His expression grew serious. We were drowning before, Maya. You were drowning, trying to keep us all afloat. Here we can breathe. My eyes stung with unexpected tears. My baby brother, too old for his years, understanding things he shouldn't have to understand. I love you. I signed. I love you too. And I think Mr. Marchetti loves you, even if he hasn't said it yet. Danny! What? I'm 10, not blind. He grinned. The way he looks at you when you're not watching? Like Mama used to look at Papa before he left. But stronger. More. Intense. Before I could respond, Dominic himself appeared in the doorway. Maya, do you have a moment? I followed him to his office. My heart racing. We'd been living under his roof for 2 days, but this was the first time we'd been truly alone since my family had arrived. He'd been careful, respectful, giving us space to settle in, but now, as he closed the door behind us and turned to face me, I saw that his patience was wearing thin. Your family seems to be adjusting well, he observed. They are. Thank you again for everything you've done. The modifications for my mother, the tutor for Danny, stop thanking me. He moved closer. I didn't do it to earn your gratitude. Then why? Because seeing you happy, it makes me happy. Because hearing your mother laugh at something Elena said today made me realize how long it's been since there was laughter in this house. Because watching Luca and Danny become friends reminds me that family isn't just about blood. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Because I want you here, Maya. Not as an obligation or an employee. I want you here because this house feels right with you in it. Dominic, I've been patient. I've given you space. I haven't pushed, even though every instinct I have is screaming at me to claim you, to make you understand that you belong here, with me. His hand came up, cupping my face. But my patience is running out. What are you saying? I'm saying that in 1 week, I'm hosting a charity gala, an annual event, very important to my legitimate business interests. I'm saying that I want you there. Not as Luca's tutor, not as staff, as my date. My breath caught. That's public. Dominic, that's making a statement. Yes. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. A statement that you're mine, that anyone who wants to get to me will have to go through you, that you're under my protection permanently. That sounds more like a threat than a compliment. In my world, they're the same thing. His lips quirked. Is that a yes? I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries, kept things professional, protected my heart from a man who could destroy it without even trying. Instead, I found myself nodding. Yes. His smile was triumphant, possessive, devastating. Good. Elena will take you shopping tomorrow. You'll need a dress suitable for the event. I can't afford. You're not paying. His voice brooked no argument. Consider it a work requirement. Appearing with me requires a certain presentation. You're very presumptuous. I prefer confident. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. And for the record, Maya, I'm aware of how presumptuous I'm being, how fast I'm pushing. But I'm not a patient man by nature, and I've already waited longer than I normally would. So if you need me to slow down, tell me now. Because after that gala, after I've stood beside you in front of everyone who matters in this city and declared that you're mine, there's no going back. I shivered at the promise in his voice. What if I don't want to go back? He pulled away slightly, his dark eyes searching mine. Say that again. What if I don't want to go back? I repeated, my voice stronger. What if I want this, whatever this is, as much as you do? For a moment, Dominic just stared at me. Then he moved, his hands framing my face, his body crowding mine against the desk. Then I'm going to kiss you, he said, his voice rough. And I'm not going to stop until you understand exactly what you mean to me, Dominic. His mouth covered mine, swallowing whatever I'd been about to say. The kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was consuming, demanding, a complete claiming that left no room for doubt about his intentions. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head for better access. His body pressed against mine, all heat and solid muscle and barely controlled want. And I melted into him, my hands gripping his shoulders, my mouth opening under his, giving him everything he was demanding and more. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Tell me this is too fast, too much. Tell me you need more time. No. His eyes opened, dark and intense. No? No, I'm not telling you to stop. No, it's not too much. I met his gaze steadily. I'm tired of being careful, Dominic. Tired of protecting myself. For once in my life, I want to take a risk on something good. His smile was slow, satisfied, and dangerous. I'm not sure I qualify as good, Maya. Maybe not by conventional standards. But for us, for your son, my family, this strange life we're building? I touched his face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. Yeah, you're exactly what we need. He kissed me again, softer this time but no less intense. And standing there in his office, wrapped in his arms, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. Wanted. Home. Whatever came next, complications, danger, the inevitable challenges of loving a man like Dominic Marchetti, I was ready for it, because sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the right one. 6 months later, I stood in the garden watching Luca and Danny race through the spring flowers, their laughter silent but their joy unmistakable. My mother sat nearby, stronger now, color in her cheeks, actually smiling as Elena brought her tea, strong arms wrapped around me from behind, and I leaned into Dominic's embrace. Happy? He murmured against my hair. I thought about everything that had changed, the charity gala where he'd introduced me as his partner, making his claim, public and irrevocable, the threats that had come and been eliminated with ruthless efficiency, the nights I'd fallen asleep in his arms, safe and cherished, the mornings waking up to Luca crawling between us, singing about his dreams, my family, thriving, Danny excelling at his new school, making friends, becoming confident, my mother's health stabilized, even improving, and me teaching not just Luca but starting a program for deaf children in the city, funded by Dominic's legitimate business interests. Terrified sometimes, I admitted. Your world is complicated, dangerous. But, his arms tightened, but I've never been happier. I turned in his embrace, meeting those dark eyes that had once intimidated me and now made me feel treasured. You gave us everything we needed. Safety, security, belonging. You gave me more. His hand moved, signing as he spoke, his fluency now nearly perfect. You gave me a family, real family, love I didn't know I could have. Luca ran over, Danny trailing behind. Papa Maya, come play, he signed, his face radiant. Dominic looked at me, and I saw my future in his eyes. Complicated, yes. Dangerous, probably, but also filled with love, laughter, and the fierce protection of a man who would burn the world down to keep us safe. Come on, I signed to both boys. Let's play. And we did. All of us. Together. Finally, beautifully, impossibly whole. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.